Please subscribe to Facetv Africa and turn the notification on. Facetv Africa, ẹ jọ̀ọ́, subscribe, hete.
Facetv Olasubomi.
Legend has it that when the Almighty God was sending a child, a new baby into the world, this baby had the unique opportunity of meeting his maker one-on-one. And the Almighty God gave him, the tablets of old made of parchment. He gave him an inkwell and he gave him a pen. And he told him, I'm sending you to the world. I want you to write down exactly what you want to do with your life on the other side. He had that liberty. He wrote it down the way he wanted, line by line, precept by precept. And he handed it over to the Almighty God. When his father saw it, he looked at it and saw that he knew exactly what he wanted to do on the face of the earth. But God felt that if I let you go with all the things you've written down, I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that I'm the Almighty God. What did Almighty God do? He put in some hurdles in his way, but made sure that he will overcome all those hurdles. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're gathered here to pay our genuine and heartfelt tributes to that child that was sent by the Almighty God to the world. That child is the man we're celebrating today, who spent almost 9 decades on the of the Otumba Michael Olasubomi Olaiwola Olaonipekun Oladimeji Balogun, CON, DSc honoris causa in a few places. We are gathered here to pay a genuine and heartfelt tribute of love and respect to a genius who in professional circles has been described variously as an icon, trailblazer, pioneer investment banker, entrepreneur par excellence, grandmaster of banking and capital market, great talent spotter and builder, and philanthropist extraordinary. Privately, he was widely acknowledged as a great family man, a loving husband to an equally loving and dutiful wife. And please, a round of applause for this woman. I know so, and the children know so. Great father to his children, every inch of the way. A doting grandfather, uncommon uncle, protective brother to his sister, Chief Olarunke Atere, and mommy's boy. I say to some people that Otumba was mommy's boy, and they don't believe me. When we go to Ijebu those days and Otumba gets to his mother's apartment, he will sit with his mother for an hour or two and hold her hands and touch her face and find out she's okay. And everything they hadn't talked about for a while, they'll talk before he goes to his own apartment. And also, I'd like to mention, being a mommy's boy, at that time, if we had good coffee in Primrose Tower and we brewed it, they'll perceive it in Central Bank. They'll come. Central Bank inspectors and supervisors will always come to us. The moment they come that they want to inspect our books, and if he wasn't expecting them, the first thing he does is picks up his phone. Mama, I want to today. And of course, the next thing, Mama takes her praying mat and goes to pray. And we always overcame the problems. Fiercely loyal friend. I haven't seen his very good friend here, one of them. I've seen the array of Lagos here. I remember one of his birthdays that he asked me to go and give him a cow. He said to me, make sure that cow is the big cow that is seen in that compound. And that I did. When he saw the cow, he took the phone and called him in London that, that you gave me an elephant. Let me go on. Generous giver and a man of prestige and panache. Without any iota of doubt, Otumba Michael Olasubomi Balogun's epithets were numerous and well-deserved. Before I proceed, let me state at the onset that many of the accolades you will hear today would have some striking similarities. This is so not because Otumba Olasubomi Balogun was your typical loud, bombastic, and in-your-face achiever. No. If anything, he was the exact opposite. Humble and silent. But because his life was an open book and his deeds were so resonant that they reverberated throughout the land, he was a giant who used his prodigious intellect, wealth, and accomplishments for the greater good of mankind. He was a colossus who spent a great deal of his life impacting and investing in the life of others. As a close observer, I make bold to say that he succeeded beyond his dreams. He turned several good people into great men and women and transformed many near zeros into heroes. Truth is, the width and depth of Otumba Olasubomi Balogun's story will require more than a day and no less than 2 volumes of books to tell. I doubt if there's anyone in this audience who singularly can capture fully his essence. We can only try. It is my fervent hope, therefore, that such a worthy exercise will soon be undertaken by more qualified individuals to comprehensively document for posterity the life and times of this inimitable Nigerian. My task at this time is simple. Summarize the much that I know about Otumba Olasubomi Balogun and allow others to, on the one hand, fill in the gaps, and on the other hand, further broaden and deepen our collective knowledge and appreciation of him. So who was Otumba Olasubomi Balogun? How did it all begin? And what were some of the most remarkable features of his life? I will say a bit of it. I know we all have read a lot about him in his books. He was very proud of his heritage and very proud of his upbringing, and he always talked about it. Otumba Olasubomi Balogun was born on March 9, 1934 in Ijebu-Ode to Muslim parents, Abdul Odutola Ashiru Balogun and Omoba Adebukola Ashiru Balogun, the Yasuna of Ijebu. His father was an aristocrat and one of the first indigenes appointed court clerks during the colonial administration, while the mother was the last of the father's 4 wives and the only educated one. At birth, the Yasuna was convinced that her child was a special son because his delivery coincided with the fall of hailstones, which was uncommon then and even now, given that Nigeria lies within the tropics. Hailstones, as some of you would know, symbolized abundance in Yoruba mythology, which was why the newborn was named Olasubomi, which roughly translates as, I'm submerged in wealth. Otumba Olasubomi Balogun spent his childhood years in Ijebu-Ode as a Muslim before leaving for Lagos for his education. He attended the famous Igbobi College, Jaba, for his secondary education, where he wrote and passed the Cambridge School Certificate in 1952 in flying colors, and later the advanced level. While in Lagos, he converted to Christianity and took on the name Michael. He wanted to study law, but there was no law school in Nigeria at that time. So before departing for the London School of Economics in 1956 to read law, he picked up a job in a secondary school where he taught English, literature, and Latin. He graduated in LSE in June 1959 and was called to the English bar in December of the same year. In his final year, it happened that Chief Obafemi Awolowo and Chief Rotimi Williams contacted LSE and asked for a bright scholar from Western Nigeria to be trained as a parliamentary draftsman. He went on to be the first Nigerian to be trained as a draftsman, legal draftsman, and he received special training in legal drafting in Whitehall in the city of London. He specialized in financial legislation, instruments, and agreements. He also witnessed history as he was privileged to be in the official gallery when the Nigerian Independence Act was passed in the British Houses of Commons and Lords. Upon completing the training, Otumba Olasubomi Balogun served as a Crown Counsel in both the Ministry of Justice of the then Western Nigeria and Assistant Parliamentary Counsel in the Federal Ministry of Justice in Lagos. By Otumba's own account, his journey into banking industry was rather fortuitous. The Central Bank of CBN at the time was about to establish the Nigerian Industrial Development Bank, NIDB, and a friend privy to the information brought this to his attention. In 1966, shortly after the nation's first coup, He joined NIDB as a lawyer and as a secretary. With time, he became fascinated by reading about the stock exchange. He was soon sent on training by the bank to the World Bank in Washington and also to the Wall Street in New York. While in the US, he met fellow lawyers who were heading stockbroking firms, as well as investment bankers, and was enthralled by them. When he got back, he made a case to some of his bosses of the need to establish an investment bank as a subsidiary of NIDB to raise money so the business can have the wherewithal to do other things. But for some undisclosed reasons, the decision makers delayed and deferred. It took time before the idea materialized. Eventually, Olasubomi Balogun's idea birthed the Icon Securities Limited as a subsidiary of NIDB, and he was appointed a co-director along with Chief Mrs. Olutoyin Olakunrin. But when Chief Mrs. Olakunrin left Icon Securities Limited, one of the big bosses told Otumba Balogun to his face that he was not qualified to lead a banking institution because his expertise was in law. As would be expected, he was devastated and disillusioned and felt devalued. This incident was a watershed moment. It marked a new beginning which ultimately gave us the man we all came to celebrate tonight. I recall that he told the story that one evening after the normal family prayers, his wife, Olori Abimbola Balogun, asked if he had what one of their sons had said, to which he replied no. He was informed that the 9-year-old boy wanted him to set up his own company. Curious but not dismissive of what looked like a whimsical suggestion, he went into the boy's room to confirm what his mommy had echoed. The boy repeated, "Dad, why don't you set up your own bank?" Unsure of what to make of this, Olasubomi Balogun went back to his altar and prayed, asking God to show him the way and not allow him fail. Before then, it was City Securities. His application for a merchant bank license was influenced by the entrepreneurial works of Sigmund Warburg, who confounded SG Warburg. I'm sure the boys will know where his book on SG Warburg is. He read that book cover to cover. He must have read it about 30 times. He loved the book and he could quote any line in that book. Olasubomi Balogun had visited Warburg in London for insights and inspiration prior to establishing Fcmb. As soon as Fcmb began operations, Olasubomi Balogun established a unique entrepreneurial culture as an owner-managed bank in sharp contrast to the government-owned banks at the time. The bank later became First City Monument Bank Group in 2001 at the advent of universal banking. It is worth stating that Olori Abimbola Adetutu Balogun acted as a confidential secretary of the new bank established by a lawyer husband. She did a lot of the work at home when the bank was being established. Please, a round of applause for Olori. It was at Fcmb that my path and that of Olasubomi Balogun crossed. To be accurate, it was at Fcmb that Otumba let me into his world as an employee. From then till he shook hands with Paradise on May 18, 2023, he had a father-son relationship with me. Ditto for some of my colleagues. He brought us all under his massive wings. For example, as a newly employed head of corporate affairs at the time, I was just an assistant manager. Olasubomi Balogun brought me all the way from Abeokuta, and I didn't know anybody in Abeokuta, in Lagos, or where to stay. He actually accommodated me in this hotel for 3 months. 3 months. And I was like, okay, this is paradise. After 3 months, he had just completed one of his beautiful buildings in Yaba, and he gave me an apartment there. It was a brand new building, courtesy of his extraordinary munificence. I became an instant big boy. As they say in local parlance, I lived large. I have told the story severally to a number of my friends and acquaintances that in all my years in his bank, Olasubomi Balogun connected and related with me beyond the job. He was very personal with me, as he was with all those who worked closely with him. He knew every member of my nuclear family and did so intimately. He even knew my mom. Whenever Olori Abimbola Balogun and Otumba traveled abroad, my kids were guaranteed loads of candies in addition to other interesting gifts. Please note that I was not the only beneficiary of this generosity. Olasubomi Balogun shared happiness, joy, love, and perks with all his staff. He infused the workplace with his entrepreneurial spirit. It is worth restating that his business philosophy was unique and was responsible for the soaring success of Fcmb. He had a hard nose for talent and invested massively in human capital. He employed only the best and ensured everyone owned their skills under his humane but rigorous tutelage. He also had the rare gift of easily spotting the potential in any good idea, even when it's still very rough, and will use his experience and expertise to help refine it until it fully crystallized. He pushed us to work hard and paid us to play hard. He encouraged diligence and discipline, but excoriated indolence and inanities. For him, no was not an answer at all. Under him, efforts were lauded while results were lionized and feted. He put in place a fair system that recognized and rewarded excellence. Lest I forget, in the 80s and the 90s, when merchant banking boomed in Nigeria, Fcmb was where most of the pioneering management staff and key personnel of majority of the reputable merchant banks recruited from. Not only that, Fcmb's standard operating procedure was generally regarded as the gold standard in the banking industry. It was adapted or adopted by most of the Nigerian merchant banks of that era. His philanthropy. Olasubomi Balogun realized early in life that wealth is meaningless if it is not deployed to the service of humanity, especially for the indigent and less privileged. Given that giving meant so much to him, he established the Otumba Tunwase Foundation and carried out most of his philanthropic activities through the foundation. Some of his notable philanthropic activities include, but are not limited to, the following: establishment of a healthcare institution for children, including the Ijebu-Ode General Hospital, a fully equipped, air-conditioned, 40-bed children's center. Financial support for numerous Christians and Muslim organizations in their development programs. His private life. It is undeniable that Olasubomi Balogun lived life beautifully, boldly, fully, and in style. He was an embodiment of flamboyance and panache. He took the best possible care of himself, family, friends, and community. As a compulsive giver, he was not known to have ever sent anyone in need of help away without doing something. He was a good mixer, for whom age was no barrier. This explained why his friends cut across age and socio-economic status. He knew, as the Athenian historian and general Thucydides did, that what one leaves behind is not necessarily what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. Outside of work, he was a cheerful, lively, and good-natured man, full of repartee and wisecracks. He will be fondly remembered as a very jovial man who, when in his elements, always let everybody around him in stitches. Another worthy aspect of Olasubomi Balogun's life was that he did not see death as the opposite of life, but as part of it. So rather than dread death, he embraced its inevitability fully. Indeed, he has been ready for his final journey home for nearly 4 decades now. He built his mausoleum about 40 years ago. Like J.K. Rowling, Olasubomi Balogun believed that to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. His honors: a distinguished achiever with landmark achievements in several theaters of life, Otumba Balogun received a plethora of awards in his lifetime. I wouldn't attempt to cite all of it, but he had, like I said earlier on, a few DSCs honoris causa in several places. He got the national honor of Commander of the Order of the Niger by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria. He was a Merit Award recipient of Ogun State and the country. He also, I must say that, he was the patron of the Ijebu-Ode Ijebu Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. He was a council member of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce. The Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria made him a fellow of the institute for his pioneering and outstanding contributions to the banking industry. He was awarded the prestigious honor of Cavalier dell'Ordine al Merito della Repubblica Italiana, Knight of the Order of Merit of the Republic of Italy. He was installed as the Olori Omoba Akile Ijebu, and he gave class to that title. He was installed by the Olori Omoba Akile Ijebu by His Royal Majesty the Awujale of Ijebuland. He was the Baba Oba of Ijebu Ife by the Ajalorun of Ijebu Ife. He was the Asalu Oba of Ijebu Imushin and the Ashiwaju of Ijebu Christians by the entire Christian community. He was conferred with the Fellowship of Institution by the Governing Council of the Yaba College of Technology. Appointed a member of the National Presidential Advisory Committee on the Recovery of the Nigerian Economy. He was a fellow of many distinguished professional associations such as Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, Nigerian Institute of Management, and Chartered Institute of Bankers. He was a life president of the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce. He was a council member of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He was chairman of Primrose Investments Limited, Primrose Properties Investment Limited, Blue Chip Holdings Limited, and Swift Trail Nigeria Limited, among others. I can go on and on and on. Olasubomi Balogun was that accomplished. But I must yield this podium soon for other distinguished speakers. Before I do, however, I remember the compelling lines in the poem I'm Free, written by Anne Lindgren Davison on June 22, 1974. Don't grieve for me, for now I am free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took his hand when I heard him call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day. To laugh, to love, to work or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. I've found that peace as the close of day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah, yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish for you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full. I've suffered much. Good friends, good times, my loved ones' touch. If my time seemed all too brief, don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your heart, rejoice with me. God wanted me now, he set me free. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Ọ̀túnba Michael Olasubomi Ọláìwọlá Ọláònípẹ̀kun Ọládìméjì Balogun, CON, DSC Honoris Causa, good night and goodbye. Again, but talking to Olori when she came back from England, she told me that Ọ̀túnba said she should sing Amazing Grace for him. And she at a point now said, oh, you sing it as well, you know it, but he now said to her, oh, you have a sweeter voice than I do. Ọ̀túnba loved to sing. And I could stand here and talk for the rest of the next 4 hours. But one thing that I didn't mention that I can add on to it now is that he so much believed in his God, and he always said, you have it around him in plaques. Christ is the cornerstone. On him alone we build. And he never believed there was any problem or hurdle that he could not overcome. And he did overcome his hurdles.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Please subscribe to FaceTv Africa and turn the notification on. FaceTv Africa, ẹ jọ̀ọ́, subscribe, hete.
Face TV was Swoby.